Here we are again. We're going to be doing pretty much the same painting. This time just showing like a little bit of a different background. And we're going to invert it this time. We're going to mirror the image. Very simple to do. You just usually go into your edits and you'll see a mirroring option. This just gives you a slightly different perspective on the image because we're now viewing it through a different lens almost. So, just like that first one, we're going to start with a liquid, dip, just a touch of paint. It's pretty thick, but that'll be okay. You'll see why in a minute. We're going to be doing a different technique as well. So, find our halfway point. And just again, repeating the same process as last time. It's really good practice because when you're already familiar with the object, you're going to feel a lot more confident. So, again, just nice and loose. Again, the proportions don't have to be perfect. These are just guidelines. It's a roadmap. Don't be afraid to go off-roading. Big hole. As you can see, I'm kind of making it a bit less wide and chunky. Kind of making it a bit longer. This is something you want to kind of avoid. You don't want every single point to be on the same plane. So what we can do is just bring one of them up. That's all you need is one. Doesn't mean you have to bring all of them up. Get a slightly different shape. This is how I like to hold my brush, by the way, when I am sketching. You don't want to be, every once in a while I'll be holding it like a pencil, but you want to hold it like this. Helps keep things loose, especially when you're doing something like this. We tend to over grip and almost strangle. It can be good for final details, but when you're trying to keep loose, we want a lot of our motion coming from our shoulder, actually, not the wrist. So, holding it further and using your shoulder just to play around with these shapes is what I recommend. So, create kind of playing around here, almost creating a horizon line. Nice and loose. Let's just fill that bottom. We're just going to fill it, because why not? Yeah, see how that created that nice little horizon. It's looking more like an actual painting. So we're gonna not go into the Q-tips yet. What we're gonna do next, because I like this basic silhouette, is we're gonna start using a lot more paint. We're gonna be creating a silhouette. It might seem counterproductive, after doing all that work, figuring things out. Think about it like stretching, you know. When you've been over these repetitions X amount of times, it doesn't really matter. It's a big part of oil painting as well. You have to learn to paint over your stuff and not be afraid to do that. I used to be really bad for doing these underpaintings, these sketches, and afraid to take it to the later stages because it looked really cool the way it is. And you know, you can do art like that. You can solely paint and never go into opacities. You know, I see a lot of people like that. We're pretty much just using washes the entire time, and kind of like from that first video where I was saying it's that push-pull. Now, when you are doing these, don't do it so, you know, you don't want to just be scribbling. You want to think about the actual direction of the shapes too. I really like this V shape in here. It's nice because everything else is rounded. So I might even just extend that even more, exaggerate it. Yeah, you want to kind of do something a little different every time. Pick a shape you like and repeat things. So it makes things look organic as well, repeating shapes. Kind of trail them off like that. Always remember to take a step back. Squint your eyes so you can see the shapes better. Just clean your brush, grab that tip. Let's clean this up. Now we're gonna start adding some values. The purpose of this technique is to allow a lot of the blending to happen on the canvas. So now that we're going to put in these whites, it's going to pick up that paint and kind of mix it. The more strokes you put down, the more it will mix. So I just like to start with my highlights, which sounds weird. It's going to create a great deal of contrast immediately. Now, when I'm doing this shape here, I want to make sure I'm keeping my brush on the canvas. Not fussing, not being perfect, just getting information in. So we're working the lightest to the darkest. Or in the other example, we were doing the opposite. And when we start going into these kind of textured areas, don't do the exact same stroke every time. You want to kind of do that, change the direction. So now we're gonna soon start building up those grays, those midtones. Yeah, this brush is really good at picking up little bits of paint. If you were to go into this with synthetics right away, it fills every pore, which I find creates a lot of problems. It's when you get muddy artwork. It gets so wet, and then you try to go and correct it. And the more paint you put on, the wetter it gets, and just has nothing to really stick to anymore because it's so wet. And we're just having some fun. Always rotate. You know, start here, go around. Get a view of the whole picture before we do any details. As much as repetition is important, it's also important to have some randomness to the piece. Don't try to make it look perfect, because it's not a perfect object. This is why we use reference as well. If you feel lost, just look at the direction of the area of the reference. Just follow it. You can see even on my palette how picking up that little bit of that raw umber is just mixing in with that pure white that we started with, because we picked it all up on that brush, and every time you dip in, it adds a little bit more of that umber. There's those triangles that I liked. Not triangles, but has a bit more of a point to it. Again, just following the reference, and you can kind of start blending all those transition points. don't overblend. Just here and there. It's almost like that pixel shading. Just putting a little bit, little bit, little bit, little bit. It's not always big strokes. Okay, so that's it for the first little bit. What we're going to do is take a little break. It's good to walk away from the painting for a few minutes. And come back with some fresh eyes. We're going to adjust everything. Just like last time, after we let the paint sit for just a few minutes, it becomes a bit tacky. This is important because now instead of when we hit the areas that have already been hit, it's not just going to slide around, it's actually going to stick a bit better. What I am going to do is go and fuzz a couple parts out. So things like the edges, these heavy textured kind of areas, we're barely touching. As you can see what I'm doing here, just top to bottom, it's kind of pulling the paint. This should help with that glare of the paint on the video as well. So anywhere you see some softness, you can just blend it just a little bit. Anywhere you want a hard edge, you want to avoid doing this. But at the same time, you can always go back and re-harden those edges. But I'm thinking, stuff like this, where it does not need to be hard. So you can kind of brush it out, you can dab. I find dabbing is a better technique, it's more control. I think that's good. So we're gonna put this brush away. And just like the last painting, one for darks, one for lights. Synthetic square. And now we're not gonna be using any more liquid, just oil. And just like last time, a touch of oil, barely anything at all. White is usually a pretty thick pigment, so I like to thin it out just a little bit, not much, barely anything. So yeah, now we're gonna go in and refine some stuff. We have this loose, basic shapes everywhere, so we're gonna tighten. Follow the reference a little closer this time. Again, you can see I'm barely touching. We want to be patient. Art requires a lot of patience. You can see my whites have already turned. So instead of getting new white, I'm just going to utilize that. The fact that it's a little bit darker. If you see little shapes or little edges when you blur your eye, this is why we want to step back, kind of blur our eyes, because you're going to see little things start to form. This is where painting gets really fun, in my opinion. After you get past that first stage, it's always the worst. Just starting a painting. I know a lot of artists struggle with that. So if you're like that, you're not alone. I find it very, very common. Again, I haven't even touched my white again yet. I'm just mixing in with all of this stuff. With all of this stuff. With all of this pigment, I'm just kind of mixing in. Because again, we don't want to overblend stuff. Now, here you go. I want this entire part to be lighter. So now, this is where we can come in and get a little bit more white. I feel like there's still enough oil on that palette. And this is where we can just lighten up that entire area. Kind of goes over here. What I'm talking about is that big strip where that V is. Okay, so now we need to kind of make this whole shape work. So I kind of just draw an imaginary line with my paintbrush. So we don't want it to be over here and only leave this small amount. So I want to bring it up, kind of following that basic line. Even though we are painting loosely, it doesn't mean you completely don't think about your work. We don't want to be overthinking it, strangling the piece, but we want it to look good too, so don't just scribble everywhere. Have a bit of intention behind your approach to these brush strokes. That's a hard edge, you can see from our reference. Kind of just going around. Remember to keep moving. As you can see here, I'm not going exactly off the reference. It's kind of just like when I don't know what to do in an area. That's when I resort to it the most. We're trying to paint a bit more instinctively. And there's nothing about this that could be wrong. As long as you get your values in there. Get those shapes, get those values. The rest is easy. A little more white. It's getting too dark, just a touch of oil. Again, remember just the tip of the brush. By the tip, I mean the corner. Just like the tip of the corner. This is another section where we need to lighten the whole area. You can see the intention of that stroke, right? It's helping create that form. Just kind of doing the same thing. There's not really much to say here. Just don't give up. It's the most important thing. Don't stop. Paintings are always going to have a weird looking stage. It's like the teenage phase, right? It looks a little awkward. It's just because it's not done. This is something I tell to my tattoo clients, you know. An analogy I use is a lot of people think it looks weird when it's just the line work or just little bits and pieces are shaded out. You still have a lot of sessions to go. I've had people approach me saying that they didn't like it or whatever it is that they say. And I always just try to use the analogy of a house. If you're building a house, essentially what you're doing is the equivalent of, you know, you hired someone to build you a house and you go to see the studding. And you're like, oh, that doesn't look like a house. Well, not yet, right? Everything has to go through its phases and time, and you know, everything takes time. This is not an immediate gratification kind of thing. I don't think artwork should be like that. Artwork should be a process, not a destination. So if you can see this, when I'm putting down these tones, I'm not, again, scrubbing everything. I'm intentionally placing in between tones and values. It's kind of if we look at our reference, there's no true black in these areas, so that's why I'm going over and lightening them up a little bit. As you can see, it's always easier to put a light tone over a dark. When we do it the opposite way, it's really hard to put a dark tone over this much white, or this much opacity. Okay, so now we're going to go back and do some of that soft blending again with our synthetics. You can get away with using just a tip in certain areas, you know. It doesn't always have to be flat down and doing this. You can just, if this is the canvas, you know, the side of the canvas, just kind of touching, just touching. This is for all these soft blend areas, right? Again, you can kind of go in and just barely touch, you know, barely touch, dab. Wow, look at that. And then what we're going to do is go back and reintroduce hard edges. So don't worry if you lose some edges. We're going to go back. Just tap it in. Now, this is the thing about soft and hard edges too. Whatever's hard is going to come forward more. Whatever is soft is going to fall backwards. So keep that in mind. So when we're talking about something like this, like the edge over here, trying to soften it up, because it's curling, right? So it's moving away from you. And when something moves away, like round objects, you want those edges to be soft. Kind of getting rid of all of the super hard edge anyway. It could be like medium soft. Yeah, it can be a little chub. Again, you can see in this part of the reference, there's no hard edges. So if you want, again, hold your brush, barely holding, you know. Just I like that hard edge. And soft. Again, barely touching. You're not putting any pressure actually. You're just putting the brush down onto the canvas. I find the only time I am ever doing pushing is when I'm doing something a bit more expressive. Okay, not perfect, but that's not the point. Now we're going to go in with a clean brush. Just like we finished off the painting last time, we're going to go back into those hard edges first. Oops, too much oil. If it's too much oil, just grab more paint. Don't add it directly to the paint that has too much oil, but kind of put a pile next to it. I like to spread it out, and then I'll pick that up. And then just add it in little bits at a time. Yeah, don't really want to do too much of this. You can see how loaded that brush is. 2 reasons. It's going to put way too much paint down, which is fine for the ending if that's what you want. But you might run into some troubles if you want to try to blend into that. Or I'm not teaching impasto. An impasto is like when you're taking big chunks of paint, usually with a palette knife, and putting big slops of paint on. I've never been a fan of that style of painting. I think it looks really cool, but it doesn't suit the way I work. So again, here we go. We're just going to stop with this highlight. Now, I want to get my brush like this because I want it to go up. I don't want to be going sideways, or because it's a pretty flat plane. Just get that highlight in there. Don't worry about it being perfect again. Now these are very controlled strokes. As you can see, I'm sure you've noticed, they start out loose, then we start to tighten up as we get more into the painting. This part can be a bit darker overall, or lighter, sorry. It looks really light when you first put it down, but again, it's going to pick up all that surrounding paint. This is again how we mix or blend without going immediately to the soft brush. I'm trying to make everything look like an airbrush tool. That's where small sables come in. Just very nice natural hair, very, very soft. I'm just going to kind of tap. Don't do circles. Tap, tap, tap. Tap it in. Now look at that area. That looks really nice. Okay. We just have that one little bit there, but I think I'm going to add a couple extra little fun guys like that. Just because it's fun. I don't know if you know this, but I'm a texture fiend. Something about it. It's very satisfying. And here we go again. I want this entire area to be lighter. So we're not pushing, we're placing the paint down. I think maybe I'll take some time now to talk about who's really inspired me. Because, yeah, there's not a whole lot to say in this process. We're just repeating everything now. We're doing that push and pull. Yeah, some of my greatest influences when it comes to painting is, I think the obvious one is H.R. Giger, if you know me anyway. I don't paint like him. I tried to, but I couldn't get the hang of the airbrush. Maybe one day I'll go back to it and try it out again, but it was just a bit much of cleaning it all the time. I was doing color, so I should have just started with the black and white. Stuck with it, but yeah, so Giger. Beksinski. I don't know how to say his first name. He's a Polish artist. I definitely paint a little bit closer to him than Giger. But the person that I take most of my influence from was a man named Jed. Jed Likeness. Amazing artist. he taught me one of the most valuable things that still sticks with me, which is set it and forget it. You know, it's kind of like what I'm doing here. You put it down, you move on, put it down, move on. Set it, forget it. Yeah, he had a huge impact on the inspiration end of things. He was putting up time-lapse videos of him painting on YouTube, and I was just blown away. I think I have 4 originals from him, one being a collaboration with Dan Kobasic, however his name is pronounced, I can't remember. It's been a while since I've thought of this. Yeah, he did a collaboration with Jed. Actually, bought 2 collaborations from those guys, but one got lost in the mail. Just kind of vanished from the face of the earth. No tracking number, nothing. But I'm glad I have as many as I do, because unfortunately, I think it was, I can't remember if it was pre-pandemic. I'm pretty sure it was like right before the pandemic hit. And the lockdowns, he ended up, unfortunately, taking his own life. And I was supposed to go out and get tattooed by him, and I remember being a little upset because he wasn't responding to my emails. And I thought it was something against me. I guess I took it a little personally. But then, find out, suffered a fate that unfortunately a lot of people do. Sorry to bring you down. But, that's just life. We're all gonna go at some point. I just want to paint as much shit as I can before I go. It's the most important thing in the world to me. I'd say overall Jed was the most inspirational, though. A lot of these techniques I'm using now came from studying his work. So I have a lot to that man's legacy. Maybe part of this is trying to just carry on where he left off. I know he did some seminars. I was dying to go to one. But, again, shit happens. And we move on. Okay, so liking where most of this is sitting. I'm gonna go in and again just touching. I'm gonna kind of work from this. Well, no, let's work from this edge over. I'm using a big brush here because it's a big area. And when I go into smaller parts, I'll change my brush. I don't want to take away all of this. I don't want to take away all of these like harder looking textures. You want to keep a lot of them there. So we're really picking and choosing. Yeah. Hit it, step backwards, go back in. You hit it again. There's no white in this area, it's all midtones. I guess this is the main purpose of using the reference as well, is just following light sources. You know, it's hard to imagine every single type of light source of every object, you know. So I just like to follow the light source. Again, we have a hard edge over here. We want to eliminate that to show that it is an object that is curving, curling around. Since this area is so light, we're probably going to go back in, darken. Remember, we're doing tiny, barely any strokes, followed by tapping to get that transition. Now I said don't do circles before, but what I meant is like don't scrub. Like you can totally do. I don't do a full circle. I'm kind of doing a. I'm exaggerating. It's more or less the upsweep that I'm hitting. I just do the circles to stay consistent with that motion. But I'm only touching down and then going up, down, up, down, up, down, up. Again, remember, this is also just practice. This isn't your gallery piece. This is just for the sake of learning. It's the reason why we call them studies. Now, I'm going to point something out right here. This little tiny hole. Whenever I make unintentionally those little holes, I fucking love it. So I'm going with a little Q-tip. I'm gonna make a few more holes. Not a whole lot, but just a few. Less is more. Put a little one here, maybe. Yeah, that's cool. So what it's doing is it's showing the background. That's why it looks so interesting. It's now bringing these colors that are the background into the piece. Because it's different from the last one we did. This one is a lot more solid. It's covering up almost all the background, especially because we started with, well, covering the whole background. So letting that shine through a bit. Now we're going back into our dark, our pure raw umber. Now this time around, you're pretty much doing no blending. Remember, touch of oil. We're going to go back in and redefine hard edges. I already know where I want all my hard edges to be, so I'm not necessarily looking at the clear version of the reference. But if you're new to this, I would suggest that. If you have an area that has a lot of soft areas, has a lot of soft transitions, sorry, that's where this is going to be the most useful. Reintroducing these hard edges. Because when you put something hard next to something soft, it increases contrast. Art demands it. That's why if you see things with low contrast and everything's just candy colored and every color is screaming at you, begging for attention, it can fall flat sometimes. Yeah, gotta pick and choose. And as you can see, I'm doing some like little dimples here and there. Maybe a crack. Yeah, I like that. Wow. Wow. Okay, so I want this to be harder. That's what she said. That edge right there. I like doing that stuff too when you have these big mid-tones, sweeping shapes. Doing just like that little kiss, little chef's kiss. Really changes the piece. Really changes the contrast in that area. If something looks too light, just go in and add a little bit of darkness. Now you can see we're doing kind of the opposite. When we were laying the white over the umber, now when we're doing the umber over the white, again you can see it's pure umber. And it is not dark. But I'm not looking for dark right now. I'm looking to darken this section, so it doesn't just completely vanish from the piece. And now this is going off of the reference, but it makes sense to me. If you see something, just do it. Don't be afraid. Art can't hurt you. The more you experiment, the more risks you take, the better you'll be. Fuck your comfort zone. I'm a firm believer that comfort is where creativity goes to die. Oops. Yeah, I'm not even mad. I accidentally just deleted that little hole, but yeah, it wasn't super important to be there, so I think it looks good with the other guys just hanging out by themselves. Now, I'm just going to go again and clean up some edges. I'm going to use a synthetic. It's pretty much the same as what we were just painting with, but these are a bit more firm bristles than the sable, so it's going to be better at softening the edges. With the sable, I find it just folds over too easy. It's good for very soft, subtle transitions, and when we're talking about blending anyway. But you know, each brush can have its own specific purpose, but you have to experiment and see how they feel for yourself. So I know some people, they hate these brushes, or people hate like a rounded, like the the rounded brushes. Some people hate filberts, which are more like these guys, but I think I've tried every single type of brush there is. I learned what works for me and my style, and again, we're not pushing too hard. In certain areas it's acceptable. If you're curious why, go ahead and do it. It's the best thing to, it's one of the best learning tools we have, is just seeing if the stove actually is hot. If you know what I mean. You know, some things we just have to learn for ourselves by making the mistake. Or even not mistake, but you know what I mean. I feel like every human's been through that, especially if you're an artist. Seems like that's all we do is wake up, make art, look at the mistakes we made, and try to carry it to the next day, the next project. And we're just about done. And these should be done in one session. You know? There's no reason. This is why we're starting small. We're starting with something easy to understand. You know, I could have went in and taught you how to do portraits right away. But I think that could be very detrimental to beginners anyway, because it's hard to do. It's very hard. So what I'm trying to do is encourage taking small steps, small bites. Develop your skills on doing small stuff, gain your confidence. Now you understand how this process works. And then once you've done it X amount of times, bump up. Go to like an 8.5 by 11 next. Something that's not too crazy of a jump. Because if you were to do this and then go into like a 5-foot canvas, you're gonna most likely anyway, you're gonna struggle a lot. So again, with like tattooers, people who do just like walk-ins and little tiny bangers, never done a back piece. If you haven't gone through the proper steps, you're really gonna struggle with that back piece. Because you can't use the same techniques all the time. The technique you use for a tiny tattoo is vastly different from a large scale piece. These are just final adjustments. I'm just kind of scanning to see if I like the way the values are sitting. What are my edges like? Tap, 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 tap. Okay, I think we're gonna call it done.